Hello, everyone. It's Nicole McIntosh here for Good News Jamaica. Welcome. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I'm really excited because I'm joined by a diabetes ambassador in the UK. His name is Mr. Tony Kelly, and he has popped by to Good News Jamaica to tell us about the wonderful work that he's doing. So for the next few minutes, I want you to sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea, drink some water, and just hear all about what this amazing man is doing in the UK and around the world. So Tony, welcome to Good News Jamaica.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nicole. It's a good to link up with my Jamaican brothers and sisters. In this case, Jamaican sister. Yes, thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. It's always wonderful to hear about Jamaicans blazing the fire around the world, you know?
Exactly. We look about with all our world.
Oh gosh, yes, yes. We are everywhere, you know. Jamaicans are everywhere.
Yes, indeed.
Right. So what I want to do, Tony, is for you to tell me how you got involved in this work. It's a wonderful field to be in, but I really want to know, and I'm sure the readers would want to know, how you got involved.
Well, unlike yourself, Nicole, I am not from a healthcare background at all. So we need to get that clear. Okay. My health disclaimer to start with. But my mother and her two sisters, so my aunts, left Jamaica in 1952, 1953, and 1956 from the parish of St. Thomas, a place called Bath, and they came to England to study nursing, 1952, 1953, and 1956. So for starters, when I see people talking about the formation of the National Health Service in 1948 and airbrushing Black people out of that, it pains me because we Jamaicans, my mother and my two aunts, they were the forerunners. They came to pave the way. They were invited here after the World War, 1939 to 1945, to come and help to build Britain, the so-called mother country. Yes. So they came. And I was born here in Britain. The accent does sound British, so you know, Nicole. And I'm going to explain to you why. At an early age, my parents decided to send me back to the land of their birth, Jamaica, to a place called Whitehall in St. Thomas, where I was raised by my aunt, Mrs. Ina Watson, and her husband and my grandmother. She was a teacher and she raised me. I went to Whitehall Primary School and she raised me. I passed what we call the common entrance exam to go on to high school. But as a child growing up, Nicole, I noticed firsthand the various symptoms which lead me now to know what they were. At the time I didn't. Relatives of mine had, and I'll use animated, had strokes. Other relatives of mine were blind. Other relatives of mine had heart attacks. Other relatives of mine had to leave the country areas to go into Kingston, into the hospital, to go on a dialysis machine because of kidney, stroke, renal failure. Other relatives of mine had their limbs, lower limbs amputated. What we would say, foot chop off, okay?
Yes.
And then there were those who died prematurely, way too early, in their 40s, 50s, or what we in Jamaica would say, gone too soon. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
So I would ask these relatives in St. Thomas and elsewhere, what's the matter with them? They would all say, oh, we have a touch of sugar, a touch of sugar. So they minimize or trivialize or downplay this medical condition by referring to it as a touch of sugar.
That's true.
The viewers and listeners need to understand loud and clear, diabetes is more than a touch of sugar. It is a medical condition. I know some people call it a chronic disease or a non-communicable disease. Yes. When I did my training as a diabetes ambassador, I'll come on to that, I was told to call it a medical condition and not refer to it as a disease. With due respect to those who still call it that.
Yes.
So, going back to my Jamaican upbringing, I eventually, after high school and so on, went to Michael Teachers Training College. So batchmates there might be listening and saying, oh, I recognize that face or that voice.
Yes.
Way back in 74 to 77, I went to Michael Teachers Training College and taught English language, English literature, and religious education in the high schools. One notable high school I taught at was Holy Childhood High School in Halfway Tree. Then fast forward 1979, I decided to return to the land of my birth, and I've lived in Birmingham, England ever since. And I went back 1980 and got married to my sweetheart at the time, and we are still here together, 1980, and we have one daughter, Abigail.
Wonderful.
Now, I was growing up here, and of course, I used to do track and field in Jamaica for high school and for teachers college and for youth club. So I've run, even before Usain Bolt was born, I was running in the Kingston Stadium. Hello?
You mean, man, definitely.
So there I am going on about my merry life, becoming, going into social work, moving up the ladder, being a middle manager, dealing with equity, equality, and diversity. And suddenly, this December coming, 17 years ago, my wife noticed the 4 classic symptoms. They're referred to as the 4 T's. T for tired, T for toilet, T for thirsty, and T for thinner. Tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner. I was displaying those, and believe it or not, getting up back then, sometimes up to 3 times during the night to go to the toilet. Now, this is, and I'm not going to generalize, but this is a man's thing. Men do not do doctors. Men are not in touch with their emotions. Men are not in touch with their feelings. I was one of those men. I put my hand up. So eventually I could take the, oh, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you, no more. And I went with a small sample, a vial of urine, to my doctor's surgery. And she put a stick in it, and it comes up saying, I'm afraid you have glucose, or what we in the Caribbean or Africa or parts of Asia would call sugar, in your urine.
Yes.
And your viewers should know there should be no glucose or sugar in your urine. But for final analysis, she sent off a sample of my blood 16 and a half years ago to the lab, to the clinic, and it came back as an early Christmas present that I have type 2 diabetes, hence me being tired, oily, thirsty, thinner. I had 2 choices to make, Nicole. Do I curl up into a ball and die? Do I still eat the 6-7 tablespoons of rice and peas that I love, and the whole heap of yam and the whole heap of banana and cassava and dumpling? Or do I make the lifestyle changes, what we call the behavioral changes, to keep the complications at bay? I have a wife and I have a daughter, and I made the conscious decision back then, I am going to make these changes, and I'm going to do things which will prolong my life and make the complications not come my way, which I witnessed firsthand in St. Thomas and in other parishes in Jamaica from relatives. So that was the wake-up call. And I can look you down the camera in the eyes, Nicola, and say, for 17 years, I've had this condition, December coming, type 2 diabetes, because in my case, it's hereditary. It runs in my family. I have never taken any medication for it. No insulin, no morphine, no tablets, no pills, nothing. It is a healthy lifestyle that I lead, along with my family, doing all the right things. I'll come on to that in a minute, which is why I'm able to be here speaking to you now. So eventually, somebody was doing a presentation, an organization was doing a presentation in Wolverhampton. I live in Birmingham. Wolverhampton is just 9 miles up the road. And they said, we want this gentleman who doesn't really go about telling anybody, but he does tell a few people that he has diabetes, and he's not ashamed to say that. We want him to come and talk at the launch of a mayor's event. They were launching a book, and they said, let him come and talk. I spoke for 10 minutes from the heart, no notes, nothing written down. And an organization was there called Diabetes UK. And they came over to me and said to me, in other words, come over to Macedonia and help us. And if you're a Christian, you know, they're saying, hey, You've got the gift of the gab. You can talk, you're articulate, you know how to go into the Jamaican language because it's amongst a lot of Black people. You know to go into the proverbs and sayings. You know, you're living proof, living with this as a patient perspective, community perspective, a Black man perspective. You're not talking with a hot potato in your mouth. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
people will understand the culture.
Yes.
So they trained me. And this June is 8 years I have been on the trail.
Wow.
2 years ago, I was invited to go to Dominica. Last year, I was in Canada. August, I should have been in Jamaica doing a series of workshops on diabetes awareness in parishes there, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and of course, St. Thomas, where I grew up. But COVID has put paid to that, so that will happen next year. And people will then hear more about it through you when I get out there. I want us as Black people to wake up. We need to smell the coffee. We need to do more physical activity. I don't use the word exercise in any of my events. I do 150 community events per year in Britain, free of cost.
How do you find time to do all of that, man? Who are you?
And still have a wife and daughter. Well, I'm now retired. After 30 plus years, I took early retirement, and believe you me, I haven't looked back. I'm passionate about getting this message across. Nicole, I'll tell you something. I go to a lot of conferences, healthcare conferences, and a lot of healthcare professionals, specialists in their own right, diabetes specialists, go up on the platform or I go to meetings, and they keep on talking about hard to reach communities.
Oh my God, don't get me started.
Look it up. Look it up on the internet, hard to reach communities. They are referring to African, Caribbean, and Asian people. I know. And then when I heard it for the first few times, I thought, okay. And I was tired of hearing it. And I said, excuse me, who are these hard to reach communities? And they boldly say, oh, the Black people, the Africans, the Caribbeans, the Asian people. Now I'm going to tell your listeners and your viewers to hear this loud and clear. Ask these people when they hear the phrase, are these people on Mars, Jupiter, in the rainforest, in the jungle, in the deep blue sea, on a desert island? Please do not patronize and be condescending to our community by referring to us as hard to reach. Absolutely. If Muhammad can't go to the mountain must go to Muhammad. And if I'm saying to them, get off your little posterior, get from behind your desk, get from out of your ivory tower or from behind your laptop. We are the community. You are supposed to go out there and engage with them, which is why I have an issue with COVID-19. They talk about underlying issues. They talk about diabetes. They talk about hypertension. They talk about dementia. They talk about disease, chronic kidney disease, and they talk about hypertension.
Yes.
And I say to them, put those aside, because I'm not a healthcare specialist. Put those aside. Jamaica, up until today, has had 10 deaths from the COVID-19. 10 deaths. They've had a lot of virus cases.
Yes.
Most Caribbean islands and most of Africa and most of South of Asia have had very few deaths. Now, why is it Britain, the bulk of the people, the majority of the people dying in Britain and in the United States are from the African, Caribbean, and Asian community? It boils down to an issue of health inequalities, socio-economic factors, and systemic racism. And I want to see people saying more on those issues, more than just saying, oh, well, Black people, it's to do with their immune system. And it's to do with lack of vitamin D and their dark skin, and it's to do with because they have that. We need to go there and educate African, Caribbean, and Asian people, which is what I am doing, about keeping themselves active, about being healthy, about eating the right food. We pay our taxes, we contribute to the society, and it goes back to my mother and her two aunts as nurses. I remember my mother giving me stories of when she worked at hospitals back in London in the 50s, caring for the nurses, just like Mary Seacole did during the Crimean War.
Yes.
The patients would say to her, get your Black hands off me. Now blatant, out and out, overt racism. But my
Agreed.
mother, as a professional, put that behind her, swallowed her, and took a deep breath, and still made sure to care for these racist patients.
Yes.
That racism isn't as round as such. In her days, 52, 53, 56, with her two sisters, it was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. We now have the Race Relations Act, so people can't put that up as any sign outside the door when wanting to rent property. Now the racism, Nicole, is very covert. Covert meaning it's subtle, it's undercover.
Yes.
So you have to be in tune and conscious and aware when it is actually happening towards you.
That's so true.
And although I sometimes say to people, this COVID-19, and I don't mean it for all the people who have died and the whole heap of black people who have ended up in intensive care unit, but it is a wake-up call for us to realize that the social economic factors, the health inequalities and the racism have played a vital part in how black people have been disproportionately dying and ending up on wards in hospital. Because if they were being the awareness in the first place, which is what I've been doing for 8 years, and being told, people said to me, Tony, when I come to your event for an hour and a half, I hear more about diabetes and what it is about and what I need to do than my doctor has been doing for the last 20, 25 years.
No, that is really, that is an indictment on the healthcare system and the society. And I agree that COVID-19 is I call it a paradigm shift for how we look at race in society.
That's right, that's right.
And I think you're right. It's an insult for people to say, actually, oh yeah, they get it because they're black and that's the end of it. No, actually.
No, that's a cop-out.
It is very much a cop-out, agreed. So tell me,
not happening.
So tell me now, what can we do at Good News Jamaica to help you? Because you've been doing so much work, and it's important that we share your story, that we share your message across the world. So what can we do at Good News Jamaica? You mentioned the events that will be coming up next year, and we'd like to cover those if you allow us to.
Yes, because Jamaica has a major issue. When I went to Dominica 2 years ago, the Queen's Jubilee Trust, I was opening my big mouth, because I do have a big mouth, as people will realize. I was at a conference, and there were some white healthcare professionals from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. They were at the conference, and they were going off to Dominica. And once I opened my mouth and started talking, they came over to me and said, we are going to Jamaica in 2 weeks' time. Had we known of you, you would be on that flight with us, because you come from that cultural background, you say the language. So they said, when next we're going, there are 4 countries in the Commonwealth, and your listeners must hear this loud and clear. There are 4 countries in the Commonwealth, they can look it up, where blindness from diabetes is rampant. They are St. Lucia, Belize, Dominica, and Jamaica. More people are blind there, because what happens is the glucose forms at the back of the eye. And a lot of people think when they're in the 50s, 60s, their sight starts to fade them. They say they're getting old. People, listeners, viewers, I am telling you, it's nothing to do with getting old. It is the glucose or sugar forming at the back of the eye, which is causing you to have blurred vision, which if caught early can save your eyesight. So
that's why they need to get eyes checked.
Absolutely, they must go. I say to people when I do my events, in the same way you take your car, your truck, your bus, or your motor vehicle to a motor mechanic to get it the once over once a year, MOT tested in Britain. Remember, that car, motor vehicle, truck is a piece of metal or junk. Your body given to you by Jah, Jehovah, God, Yahweh, whoever you worship, is far more important than a piece of junk or metal. What is to stop you, instead of buying the next expensive train or shoes or what? Go once a year and get your checkup, because diabetes can remain in your system, this is a fact, for 10 years, having its wicked way at you, and you have no idea until the horse has bolted and gone. And I want to explain to your listeners, give me the chance, Nicole, what diabetes is. Because there's some people who hear the word and still don't know what it is. First of all, there is type 1.
Yes.
Only about 10% of people have type 1. We have an organ in our body called the pancreas, which is situated just around the midriff, behind the belly button. It is 6 inches long. It's called the pancreas, and it makes the hormone called insulin. Listeners and viewers, without insulin, you will die. You can survive without an arm, a leg, a foot, an eye, or have no teeth in your body. You cannot survive without insulin. So in type 1, and none of the healthcare professionals, scientists, doctors know why, the pancreas collapses and packs in altogether. So it's nothing to do with lifestyle, nothing to do with ethnicity, nothing to do with how big you are or anything. Type 2 now is slightly different. It either runs in your family, so it's hereditary, or you develop it, and it's happening a lot within childhood obesity. The children are eating too much of the fast food and the junk food, and they are developing diabetes at a much, much earlier age. Black people on the whole tend to develop type 2 from age 25. White people tend to develop it 15 years later at age 40. What happens is that the insulin is being made, but either it's not doing its job properly or not enough is being made. This is the pancreas we're talking about. So with type 1, we have to give thanks and credit. And last year I was in Canada. 1921 is the year, if you're going to go on any of these quiz shows. Frederick Banting, a doctor in a lab with his French medical student Charles Best. Who would think that Charles Best is a French name? But he was a medical student named Charles Best. They noticed a dog outside, a very meager dog. In Jamaica, we would say maga dog, okay? And they injected the dog with this substance that they made, man-made or artificial insulin. From 1921, that is how insulin was discovered. So what they then do, anybody with type 1 either has to inject insulin, it's much more improved since then, 3 times per day in the stomach region to keep them alive, or some prefer to have a pump strapped to their body so it drips insulin 24/7.
Yes.
With type 2 now, and a lot of people with type 2 is to do with being overweight, being fat, being obese, or being morbidly obese. Because remember I said the pancreas is situated in this mid-region. So the more fat that you have around your tummy area, you need to get rid of it so that the pancreas can get to do what it is supposed to do. Circulate the insulin and the blood glucose monitoring. It happens. Some people have it hereditary, and some people say, Tony, can it be cured? To this date, there is no known cure for diabetes. Get that. So don't send off any money to any quack or any this place or that place or what you see on the internet. You have to start changing your lifestyle, changing your diet. And I'm going to come on to those things that I do, which is why I keep the complications at bay. I know some people are on insulin with type 2 or metformin, and you have to be mindful of doctors who immediately you're pre-diabetic or borderline, they start to write a prescription. You need to, as doctors and healthcare professionals, enable and empower the patients to make the lifestyle changes. That is so crucial. Don't go down the pharmaceutical or medical route straight away. Say, okay, go away for 3 months, start eating better, start doing some physical exercise, physical activity, I should say, not exercise. Tone yourself up, then come back and see me. And then, okay, your bloods are getting better, your glucose level is going down, your cholesterol level is going, I'm going to give you another 3 months. And enable and empower. It's about giving them the chance to do it for themselves, more than saying, here you are, just take tablets. Stop. Tablets mask the problem. They don't deal with the underlying symptom. So that's my starting point. And I've had in these 8 years, people come up to me, because everywhere they see me, they don't remember their name, and they shout out, hello, Mr. Diabetes. And they say, you know, I'm off insulin. And my doctor said, I don't know how come you're off insulin. And they say to the doctor, I met a man named Tony Kelly. And when he says jump, you say, how high?
Oh, high.
I am passionate about getting the message across. So let me start with food. We love with food. That's part of life. You eat to live or you live to eat. You decide whether you eat to live or you live to eat. I'm not going to answer that for anybody. But
Exactly.
we love with food. And before I'm just going to give you one joke. My father, when he was alive, he used to say, food is the staff of life, but rum is life itself. I leave that one with you.
I like that
Listen,
one.
I'm a proper Jamaican, you know.
Well, you're talking to another proper Jamaican, so I love that.
Exactly. Listen, I used to sing in Jamaica with the Jamaica folk singers.
Lovely.
With Olive Lewin and her group. And she sang at her wedding in 1980 in Jamaica. So there's nothing Jamaican. Some people said to me, well, you couldn't have been born in England. And all these sayings, when I got to the group and I come up with the sayings, they said, no. How you know these things? I said, grew up in Whitehall, St. Thomas, I know everything about the Jamaican way of life. And I instill it and pass it on to our daughter. So she know this is part of our culture. The Louis Bennett stuff. And I'm important that it doesn't go in the grave or, you know, we need to write, which is why I'm a big writer as well. But let's look at the food. People need to understand. And if they don't get anything from this interview, I want them to understand one thing. Some people said to me, oh, well, Tony, I'm pre-diabetic or I'm on the border. That's what pre-diabetic or borderline means. I'm going to give up the sugar, the ice cream and the bun and the syrup and the condensed milk. And I said, that's the point. Remember, every single carbohydrate or starchy food you eat breaks down into your body into glucose, or as we in the Caribbean would say, sugar. Yes. I want your listeners to hear that loud and clear. So the patty, the rice, the cocoa bread, the yam, the dumpling, you name it, all those things. And I'm not saying we must give them up, but we need to look at our portion sizes. Yes. Moderation in all things, less is more, and you also need to go for more vegetables. We eat a lot of vegetables and fresh fruits. And these are the 5 things we do. If you were to come to our household, we don't do fry-ups. We boil, we steam, we bake, we grill, and we roast. I'll repeat them. Boil, steam, bake, grill, and roast. All of this I'm telling you just from up here, sir. No notes, no nothing.
Impressive.
We do not do, we as a people love too much this. When I started coming back to Jamaica over the years, and I see this thing called festival, normal dumpling, and you put, what you putting sugar in dumpling for? What are you putting sugar in the dumpling for? The dumpling or the Johnny cake or fried dumpling is as good on its own. I got to Headshire Beach, I got to these places to say, why is this thing so sweet? Oh, it's called festival. Is that for real? Cut it out. You're not supposed to be drinking this holy soda, the TNG, the aerated soda, and so on. If anything, drink water, coconut. Drink water. You're supposed to be aiming in order to flush out the poisons and toxins from your kidneys. You should aim to drink 2 liters of water per day. You need to go for fresh fruit. You can't be drinking these juices and things that are in the supermarket packed with sugar. They are doing your body no good. You can't be buying all this junk food, the KFC and the McDonald's and the Burger King and the chicken McNuggets. Come on, people. And in Jamaica, the food is so nice. When we come there, it has such a better taste and tastes so fresh and lovely. We need to eat sensibly. Fresh fruits and vegetables. It's so important. Then, apart from that, we need to do physical activity. Yes. Get up our posterior and walk. Form a walking club with 3 or 4 of you, and you motivate each other. Don't walk on flat surfaces. Find hills and gradients. When I was in Jamaica growing up, we're running down hill and gully and I'm going on coconut bunker and sliding down it and so on and enjoying life. Everywhere people going these days, it's car. Park the car. They say, oh, Tony, it's too hot. Invest in an umbrella or parasol and walk with the parasol or the umbrella and do things, do line dancing, do gardening, do aerobics. I do every week before lockdown, every week for years and years. I do a Pilates class, I do a
Wow.
Zumba class. Zumba. Me the one dege man. And Jamaicans, we know when we say one dege
What you
man.
mean, man?
In a Zumba class with 25 women. And when they laugh at me, I say, well, I'm the rose amongst these thorns. Hello?
Definitely.
So
Love it.
Zumba, Pilates, badminton, yoga. And although I was brought up in Jamaica around the Caribbean Sea, I cannot swim.
Me too.
But I go to an aqua aerobics class where you stand in the water and the water is just below your belly button or your navel, and the instructor has the music on. And when you're done, move your hand and your feet against the force of the water.
Yes.
It's one of the best forms of physical activity you can do.
Yes.
I would get rid of the remote control. It's the bane of everybody's life. The only physical activity they have is this finger and thumb. You need to throw it away, or change the battery, or hide the battery, or put dead batteries in. I keep it real, Nicole. And
that's a bit extreme, man. That's extreme.
No, because what you're going to do, in the days when I came in 1979, we never had remote control. Every time you want to turn it, you get up and do it. 4 or 5 times.
True.
Movement.
Good
Instead
point.
of sitting on there for 6-7 hours and just clip. You are doing movement. Your heart muscles are meant to circulate blood around your system. Beg you, do hide the remote control. When you go on the bus or the minivan, come off at your stop before or the stop after, and briskly walk is another thing. I mean, people need to see me in flow doing these things. Briskly walk, not like you're going behind a funeral casket or a funeral coffin. You're walking briskly fast, so you're building up the heart muscles.
Like you're rushing to get to somewhere that's going to close, right?
Sorry?
Like you're rushing to get to somewhere that's going to close.
Exactly. When you go to the supermarket over here in Britain, every one of them have these travelators. If I had my way, I would ban them. I would ban travelators. People are supposed to, next to the travelator is the stairs or the steps. 9 out of 10 people use the travelator. Let me ask viewers something. Do you have a travelator in your home? The answer is no. So what the dickens you're going to a supermarket to use the travelator for? Use the steps or the stairs in the same way. Okay? There's so many things I could tell you that we need to do.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's practical.
Practical tip. And pro-social, I have to lead by example. So, for instance, I go into the city center in Birmingham, and people say, what floor you want? Going up to the 17th, 18th floor. And I say, I'm going up to the 16th floor. And they say, but the lift here. I say, I don't do lifts. I'm not claustrophobic, but I will not go into a lift or use elevator, whichever country you're in. Some people call it lift elevator. And they say, but you're going to be Superman. How are you going to get there? And my standard joke is, Usain Bolt cannot beat me to get up to the 17th floor, because it's something I do every day. I walk up the stairs, and then the lift stops at the 4. It stops at the 6. It stops at the 9. It stops at the 12, letting people up. I am on the 17th, having walked casually, not run, walked up there, could have had a cup of tea or coffee. And when the lift opens the door, people say, how did you get up here so quickly? I said that your feet were made for walking. Your feet were made for walking. You must walk.
Trust me, that's
in my
impressive.
In Jamaica, we never had lifts. We never had lifts or stairs or travelators. Yeah?
So hold on. So all these practical things, I'm going to write an article about this, because I think some people might not be able to watch all of it. So I want to make sure that we have it written down. So tell me, you have the practical steps with the diet and the activity. What else? What else?
Well, I tell people when they go to their GP, and the GP immediately starts, they need to be assertive. And if you're having issues with your GP on your own, take somebody who can advocate for you. Somebody who I can't go everywhere. Some people say, Tony, can you come with me? We say, no. But take a family member or a good friend, because the GP needs to understand, especially within, in Jamaica, it's not so bad, but in Britain, where you and I are, and in some countries, there are cultural differences.
Yes.
I come across people who are not able to, or they get tongue-tied in the GP surgery.
Mm-hmm.
An issue for some is they have what they call white coat syndrome. When I was growing up
Yes.
as a child,
Yes.
your mister might not know what white coat syndrome is. If I see a doctor come behind you with a white coat and a stethoscope, my heart, my blood pressure starts going up. It
True.
happened from when I was a child growing up in Whitehall. One or two of my teeth weren't, I was having toothache. You go to this doctor who comes, this dentist who comes from the Kingston into the country. Instead of filling your teeth and not giving you the proper local anesthetic, they just whip it out. So I've always had this aversion for pain. So if I see somebody in a white coat, a doctor or so, and I say, oh my God.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
from my childhood, and it stayed
Yes.
with me. But
Terrible.
in terms of other tips, so that one about going to your GP, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of you must only go to tried and tested websites. There are a lot of websites out there wanting to tell you this, and your diabetes can be cured and so on. You need to go to the Jamaica Diabetes Association website.
Yes.
The one in England is the diabetes.org.uk. Under
Yes.
the tried and tested website, a lot of recipes are on there for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, well, I have to have the portion of rice that you eat on your plate must fit into the palm of your hand. Anything more than what's in the palm. And some people say to me, Tony, he's a big man or a big woman. You expect me to eat that? I say, your stomach shrinks accordingly, and your eye is too big for your belly, having 6, 7, 8 tablespoons of rice on your dinner plate. Your dinner plate must be a healthy, well-balanced dinner plate with okra, or what we call ladies' fingers, with salads, with tomatoes, with proteins as well. A few carbohydrates. If you're a meat eater, you'll have your meat dish on it as well. And as I said, the less of the oil, less of the fry up, please. And it's about taking deep breaths. If you're feeling stressed, whatever, I know people are in lockdown at the moment. And for some people, one woman said it's driving her up the wall. I spoke to her and she said she hasn't left her house at all and she's getting depressed. I said, well, what are you doing? She says when she gets up in the morning, Nicole, till she goes to bed at night, she has on News 24, one of the channels, watching about COVID. I said, oh my God, please, please. Laughter is the best medicine. Find the Oliver Samuels tapes, find the Keeping Up Appearances, Hello, Hello, It Ain't a Fat Man, all these various programs that are out there on tape on YouTube. Have your belly full of laughter. That's what it's about. You cannot from morning till night be watching a cook. That alone would drive you crazy.
It's true,
So
man.
she said, oh, and I ring her now and she says, oh, I'm so thankful you told me that. I have a cousin in London. Since lockdown, she has left her house. I rang her 2 weeks ago. She tells me her feet are beginning to swell. I said, oh my God, what are you doing? She says she gets up in the morning, out of bed. She goes and she makes her breakfast or she does her lunch. She sits on the sofa or the couch all day. She might go up the stairs and come down, and that's it. I said, no. If you're going to do the stairs, and luckily she doesn't live in a bungalow, she lives in a 2-story, so she can do the stairs, you've got to set aside half an hour. You walk up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Because in the early days of lockdown, when we weren't allowed outside in Britain, I did it, took it in turns with my wife, up and down, half an hour. I sweat like a pig, but I am doing physical activity, keep heart and mind and soul ticking over, and the feet moving and the heart circulating the blood. It is something that people need to do. If the person has mobility problems and is old and elderly and frail, all you're asking them to do is try in the comfort of their home to stand up in their seat and just stand up and sit back. And then they be patient, wait 5 minutes, stand up and sit back. And another thing I always encourage them to do, get plastic bottles, not glass, plastic bottles, fill them with water in both hands, and all you do with the plastic bottles is this. Bring them up, and when you get, do it to music if you want, and when you get tired of doing it like that, you can even do them that way and that way. Take them full up. And if you
Tony,
want to do the feet, coordinate the feet
sure,
with
I'm
them
not
as
sure
well,
what went wrong
then
with
by
the
all
video.
means do the feet. But it's
Tony,
about moving up and down, keeping yourself active. Those are some of the tips that I give out there to people. And they say, Tony, you're a godsend. We wish we had known of you ages ago, more than just chucking pills down.
exactly. Tony,
Pills
I'm
are
not sure
not the
what
be
happened
all
with
and
the
end all.
video.
Some people have to be on medication. I'm not disputing that for 1 minute. But there are other people out there who can decide, you know what, I'm going to be more proactive. I'm going to be more active. I'm going to do the things that I should be doing to keep mind, body, and soul, because it helps the brain mentally as well. Mentally, physical and mental, the two go hand in hand.
Agreed.